Hello and welcome to another episode of The New Frontier. I'm here as always, well, as most of the time anyway, with Joe. Joe, how are you?
Hey Max, I'm all right. How are you doing?
Good. And it's an exciting week because next week we are off to Accelerate. So listeners, if you're going to be there, please tweet us, LinkedIn message us. We'd love to meet you in person. I know a lot of people are on our WhatsApp, which I think the link is always in the notes below. So join the WhatsApp, put in a message. What are you most excited for in Accelerate, Joe?
Oh, I think actually meeting everyone, seeing all the people that we constantly talk with, but virtually, and actually being able to see them in person. I think for me, it's mostly the networking. I think there will be some interesting AI stuff coming out from Amazon. But yeah, it's mostly the people. And you?
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited for the networking. I'm nervous for the AI stuff. Let's see what Amazon launches. Let's see. Hopefully they won't launch. I was just saying to Neil. Oh, I've ruined who our guest is. But I was just saying to our guest. I hope they don't launch. We've just obviously launched the A plus generation in one click, and I'd be very sad if they launch that because that would obviously wipe out months and months of work and planning. And
yeah, but it won't be as good as your guys, you know.
It won't, but it would be free, which is good in its own way. But anyway,
wait. Before you go anyway, I just wanna like take a moment to have an appreciation for my friend Max Sinclair. What happened this week, Max Sinclair? Because I feel like you should be shouting out of the roofs for that.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So we announced our pre-seed. Well, I don't know what you pre-seed, seed, whatever you want to call it. So we announced the 850K in funding for e-content, which is very exciting. So we're going to be accelerating all aspects of what we've been doing. We already have a team of 8. We may grow this. We've already got some of the top AI talent working for us. So, but now, it's good to kind of extend the runway, maybe add a few more faces to the team. But yeah, all blaze ahead for kind of optimizing for Cosmo and Rufus and generating all this content in a few clicks. So yeah, it's exciting. But anyway, we have talking about exciting, we have a very exciting guest. We have someone who has spent 17 years of selling, coaching, and mentoring, 12 years using Amazon FBA with private label brands, operating as an entrepreneur and business owner since 2007. So an absolute veteran in the space. He has served over 1,000 people during his coaching and consulting career, currently supports 200 clients in Voltage Holding organization, which owns software, private label brands, is an incubator and mentors beginners to advanced sellers doing more than 10 million a year on Amazon. He also if that isn't enough stuff, he does more. He also purchases and sells FBA companies and kind of does all of this stuff without the Wall Street money, as without the VC. I guess it's Wall Street, but also the VC money, mostly with these aggregators. So without further ado, Neil, welcome. How are you?
I'm good this morning. Thank you for asking.
Neil, before Max asks a proper question, I want to ask something slightly different. When do you sleep?
When I'm homeschooling my children? No, I'm not serious. If you get processes and people and methodologies in place and you do it the right way, you actually can trust a team, who does so much of it for you. Like, it really can be trained into the right people. If you train the right people, which is probably something we'll talk about today. So I can actually get my 6 hours of solid sleep every night and feel great and go and have tons of energy. And part of that is also eating well and working out and doing other things to keep that energy level high, right?
Yeah.
Do you homeschool your children?
We do. We have our 4 daughters
Amazing.
here, and we homeschool them. My wife is kind of the CEO of that business in our house. I am the enabler. I float around and help, and sometimes travel and go to their, wherever I can go to help or block time out or get with them. I do when I can, and teach certain things, and business and finance and entrepreneurialism, teaching them how to create value that actually creates money is one of the things I instill in them. And so some of them are actually on their way to business at 14 and 16.
Amazing.
And their own little business models that we're building for them. Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Amazing. So Neil, I guess you gave me like a PDF of an introduction. You've also written some books. I kind of try to distill it into a paragraph or two. Would you want to add anything before we launch into the questions? Or?
No, answer questions. I don't want to talk about myself anymore. Let's talk about some business.
Okay. So yeah, I can ask the first question. So how did you make a successful online business back in 2007 with no college or formal training?
Great question. Nobody's ever asked it that way before. In simple terms, I would say that I always knew that I wasn't going to do the normal thing. I don't know if that makes sense or not. It wasn't because my father was an entrepreneur or not. He was a hardworking, veteran who didn't graduate high school and actually never went to college. He did a 2-tour Vietnam tours in Vietnam, in the Navy. So he was the, hard work, diligence, get out here, suck it up, buttercup, we're doing this anyways kind of guy. And taught me a lot about, man and values and instilling values of family and, self-sacrifice and how it, means to become someone, a solid and responsible individual and citizen. He had no experience in business at all. He had no experience in finance. He had no experience in entrepreneurialism. In my house, money was a 4-letter word. If you said it, you were disrespecting dad. You were not appreciating what you had, and money simply wasn't talked about in our house. On the other hand, I had some family members, my uncles, who ran their own construction companies at different levels of construction. So I kind of saw that they were out there and worked with them a few times on their projects and got to see a different way that they were living and working and doing business for themselves. So I thought, okay, you know what, this is not too hard to comprehend. My dad goes here every day for 12 hours and he does it right at that time in the swing shift. So I was gone most of the time because he was working overnight. And then I saw my uncles who had some freedom and momentum and could do things and schedule themselves. And I sort of had that dichotomy. And one in particular actually did very well in business in San Diego, built a boat company. He was handcrafting and then built a whole boat division and actually set the sailing speed record for a trimaran between San Diego and Hawaii. And after that, his business kind of blew up. So I really got to see the Kiyosaki, explanation of a rich dad, poor dad. And I never knew that until I saw the book later. And I'm like, oh yeah, that actually would have happened, because listening to him and talking to him, et cetera, kind of gave me that, inclination. And as I was younger and on a path of destruction, opportunity, by the time I got through college and dropped out and didn't want to do all that crap and then found the internet and was like, yay, save. I had to get in the corporate world because the internet, this is going to date me, the internet was not a thing yet. We were doing like email green screens and crap like that. And everybody thinks they've got it hard now. Good gosh. So forward, was that I had to stay in academia or I had to go to corporate. So corporate track was the opportunity. Taught myself how to program and then taught myself how to network, and then eventually got into Sprint and spent 5 years building the first knowledge management system platforms as part of the first division of mobile phones that launched into the marketplace. So I got to see that from the inside out, which is crazy. And that grew from the 5,000th employee that I was hired in as a contractor at 21 to hire and be a part of a management team that oversaw all the knowledge and infrastructure websites, 50,000 something pages of the system they used to support the reps and the people as a part of that mobile launch. That's how basic and fast we were moving. And there was 5 other people. So I got to play around with the idea of management and control, and they were all 20 years older than me. That was fun. And then build that system. It grew to 80,000 employees. IBM came in, and long story short, they said, hey, you're doing a great job. We want to hire you out. And so I got hired into IBM. So now I'm working with Yale and Harvard and double docs and MBAs, and I'm flying around the country, around the world. No degree, but a very solid knowledge of what it meant to do business at that point. And also understanding the phrase, it's who you know, not what you know, and who you know, the phrase, who you know gets you there and what you know keeps you there. Let me get this out of my mouth. Long story short, by 2007, I was ready to go. My uncle had died. My entrepreneurial brain had left me for 2 years. And by that point, I was on my way out of the corporate world. He had told me to get out earlier, but I didn't listen. But he was a great mentor and gave me a lot of understanding of the business and fortitude of scale. And so by 2007, when the opportunity came, I jumped. I said, I'm out. I burned the boats, but not the bridges, to be very clear. There was no going back.
Wow. Okay. And so I guess my question is like, this is really brave, and you were so very young. Like, how did you get this confidence to just go and take the leap?
So I don't know. I would like to say it was some magical fairy that sprinkled confidence dust on me, but that's not really true. I think it was just seeing that I wasn't afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to fail and look stupid. I'm not afraid to do the things that I know risk big, because I've seen big rewards when it happens, right? And when you have that sphere of realization, when you get outside of your comfort bubble, because one man's 1,000 square foot house is a man's 10,000 square foot house, and so on and so forth, and $500 to you is different than 5 million to somebody else. It's all scale of mind. It's not actually scale of money or other things. And it really got to the risk factors of what's big and what's possible. And when I saw it way out here, I'm like, holy crap, my entire bubble blew up. And it was like, well, how do I step through that process? So it just meant not being afraid of trying and failing.
And was there a lot of failing in the beginning?
Oh, heck yeah, dude. I destroyed a marriage being an arrogant, prideful prick. That was awesome. Don't recommend it. Highly don't recommend that. But it led to where I'm at, so I guess I wouldn't change it, because I love my wife and known her since she was 21, and 21 years later, I'm still in love with her. And we have the 4 beautiful daughters. So I wouldn't change that, but I don't highly recommend destroying marriages out of arrogant, prideful, stuff. That was a major failure to completely reset my life, put me back to the 400 credit score with, no money and no 401k and nothing. So I started all over. And then I went bankrupt later on because I was pushing hard to go big and didn't see certain things. I wasn't willing to look at them, as Jim Collins and Good to Great says over here. I wasn't willing to pull the rock up and look at the ugly, nasty things underneath it. I just kept the rock down and walked over it 10 times until I finally tripped on it. And that caused bankruptcy. So personal bankruptcy, professional maneuver was to get me out of a situation where I'd gotten in bed with some people that were not good. And the situation they'd done with investor funds was not good. We'd raised millions and millions of dollars. And let's just say it wasn't all going to the business. It wasn't going to my bank accounts. So when I got the lawyers involved and stuff, I had to check out. So yeah, big risks, big fails, big boundaries. People are like, oh my gosh, I can't go bankrupt. I'm like, well, there's worse things going bankrupt. Been there, done that. Not dead yet. So onward and upward.
So I have one more question about this before we kind of move on to the Amazon stuff, which obviously
I'll try to get my answer short. All right.
You're a veteran in, and it's actually my favorite question. And I mean this with all, like, in respect, like when talking to kind of like, the generation, I'd say before me and Joe, which is you're kind of, you're at IBM, you saw, I imagine, had a front seat of like the internet and like the explosion of the internet, and obviously got into online selling very early. How do you think about the differences or similarities between like the AI revolution now and the internet revolution that you saw,
Yeah. Well, I was actually involved in the first of the human machine interface and AI stuff that we were doing, the machine language learning at IBM, when I was in a project working at the part of the Watson supercomputer out of Armonk. And we were dealing with latent semantic search engines, building knowledge management, human machine language learning that, tracked the knowledge and the implicit and the tacit knowledge, which is 2 forms of knowledge that we get or gain through execution. That leads us to the actual knowledge that we can implement. And all that process was digitalizing that data and information into ways that could be retrieved faster in an environment that was high speed. Like there was a lot of people, a lot of phone calls, millions of interactions and transactions that were happening. And they were already pushing the boundaries of that. And we were in the component of building systems that could predict incoming calls from any customer support line based on all data known about that customer, intrinsic data, and then data that could be defined or learned by the system to basically predict what the person was calling about. So it could potentially add, the ability for systems to allow people to self-serve faster than reaching a human. Keep in mind, this was like 2003 to 2007. So at that point, systems and understanding and supercomputers and working near them and working with guys that understood string theory and other crazy things, I got to glean a lot of knowledge about how far they had actually come then to what we actually see now. And I will tell you, it is the tip of the iceberg. What they've been able to do since then, I'm sure, and what they were doing that I didn't know about because I was asked to go get secret clearance. And went through the process and decided not to do that because a mentor was like, if you do that, your whole life is going to change. And I'm like, I kind of like where my life is right now. And he's like, probably don't do that. And I said, okay, but I understood there were even bigger things in that space to go play with, and decided not to go that route. So now I see what is AI as tip of the iceberg. It's playing with children's toys in a sandbox when the real engine isn't here yet, but it's coming. And when it shows up with quantum computing behind it and other factors that are, the speed of human thought now, or beyond it, things are going to change very dramatically. So I think they just gave us a dime bag, and the crack dealer's coming.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had Yoni Mazur a few episodes back. We talked about his prediction about AGI and when it's going to come, and he thinks that it's already achieved, but just
it's been achieved in my opinion for a while. I agree with Yoni, and I've had kind of that conversation on his podcast, but it has been achieved. They just can't roll it out because it's so scary, and there's controls of things they've got to put in place to ensure that if it isn't or already has come sentient somewhere, and I don't know the truth on that, but when it does, it has to be somewhat controllable.
How do you think about the different speed of adoption? Because obviously I wasn't around. Well, I wasn't very old at the start of the internet, but I love reading about history about business, and it seems like so many big businesses just completely missed it. And I feel with AI, everybody, if you read their quarterly reporting, whatever, everyone's talking about AI immediately. So all of us have tried ChatGPT, tens of millions of users in the first month, and obviously that never happened with the internet. So how do you feel about speed of adoption is changing?
Speed of adoption and the movement of the innovations that will cause it to move up from early adopters into mass adoption is coming, and it's coming relatively fast. There's every 6 months technology changes and is evolutionary, supposedly in its leap. I think what we've seen is that this kind of leap to AI that leads to the next step is I'm going to say this the wrong way because I don't have another way to say it, a quantum leap. It really is. It is going from this long since the internet came down to transitioning all of that times 10 in about this amount of time. So in the speed at which those systems can work and think, and the fluidity of that is going to redefine the way we do business. It really is. And so it's going to come down to our ability to control it. AI won't replace us unless it goes haywire. It will be the people who can control it that will win. So with certain levels of technology, and I see people adopting it at its most basic levels right now, they actually don't understand what they have yet. And that's part of teaching and training. And once people start to get it, that's when more of it will be released, I believe. And this will go extremely fast. That's why we see some major corporations like Amazon now evolving its technologies, even though it could have done it years ago. They're now moving this data set they have, which is tremendous. It's huge. It's not just backed by, say, the .com and physical products. It's backed by everything on the AWS platform, which runs more than half the internet, as we know. So with that amount of data and information, their capabilities were surpassed in the release of things like Rufus and coming, Cosmo and implementation of Cosmos. That could have been done years ago, right? They just held it back and are waiting for the adoption of people's minds to catch up before they can recognize what it is they're actually using.
I don't know though. I feel like if we just take I'm just gonna for 1 second separate the conversation from Amazon and Cosmo, and we're gonna talk about that. But I don't know. I have a feeling that we all live in a little bit of a tech bubble and an AI bubble, and we think, oh wow, yes, everyone is adopting this very quickly. Look at the big companies. Yeah, of course the big companies are adopting it quickly, but if we look at it on a worldwide level and sort of on an industry level, and we think about how the world is built, even just the simple digitization of industries is still something that is in progress. It's not happened everywhere in the world. Actually, for majority of the world, it hasn't really happened. And, we are already talking about AI. So I think there is going to be the 1-2% of the world and the industries that are going to adopt AI to an extent. And then there will be the 0.5% that is going to be adopting it in an advanced way. But majority of people would lag, just like with anything to do with digitization. So I think it's really important to understand that we are definitely not exactly objective about where we are standing in terms of the adoption curve on a worldwide level, across industries, across most people. So, but yeah. So let's talk about Cosmo then and Rufus, because yes, Amazon might have had that in their pocket for a while, but at least from everything that we've seen so far, Rufus hasn't been overwhelming in terms of its performance. What do you think now?
No, it hasn't. I think it's just first version. It's just pre-adoption. It's always testing to see how it's being used and how people are, utilizing the search or reading and, consuming its information or utilizing it to drill down on products. All of this stuff right now is just early stage testing. They're just gathering data. So no, I don't see the most advanced versions of what I believe is coming with Rufus, and certainly not with Cosmo yet. Think Minority Report, right? Think about predictive and analytic ability to move forward and backwards in video and other things in real time, and be able to analyze that content in real time, and then make real-time decisions based on who you are, where you are, what you're watching, and what your precursor is to buying a fishing pole versus buying a dinghy. So it really gets down to that intent-based is coming. It's not here yet. And once it is, I think people are going to be very surprised at how much more they're buying and subconsciously not realizing that they're being influenced by it.
But do you think, I just want to ask one more follow-up question, which is more about like the consumer side of things.
Yep.
Because again, we are very much focusing from, oh my God, we have to optimize for Rufus and Cosmo and But I guess my question is, do you really believe that consumers in any measurable way in any time soon will get used to conversating about their purchasing versus searching for keywords? Because let's face it, searching for keywords has been around since the start of internet. This is how we have been communicating with the internet for as long as we have been. And the whole AI revolution around contextual, basically contextual conversations and asking questions back and forth is a completely new sort of paradigm. So do you think that majority, again, I'm asking for majority of people, would be able to switch fairly quickly in this sort of new conversational way of thinking?
No, I think what's going to happen is that those who understand how to control it that win will be in corporations or certain businesses where they've understood how to adapt it to the drive for the consumer. With an intent-based AI or AGI, what we're looking at is it is not going to require you to search. It is going to present you with the most optimized version of whatever it is that it thinks you're going to buy based on what you're doing or what you were about to do based on what it predicted from your history. Remember what I was telling about earlier? We had 40% accuracy for people who were calling in, and that was 20 years ago. Okay. So it's going to bypass the consumer is basically what I'm saying. And it's going to come at you, right? Based on the best intent. So keywords and stuff just evolved like AOL keyword, blah, blah, blah. That was such a big thing for a while. And then we evolved into searches and other things that weren't just keyword based. They were specific focused, and the customers went along for the ride as they learned to become more savvy in a world of technology and buying. And we had exponential growth of that in 2020 when people like my parents who'd never got online and had the Amazon app installed or anything purchased online whatsoever are now buying online regularly, right? And because of that, the technology has to adapt to all types of people that are getting in there. And that's where we see AI really rising up. So keywords aren't the future, in my opinion. It is the intent based of the engine showing you anything it thinks you want based on predictions. Anytime you pull it open or go after it, or you're on a video, or you're on YouTube, or you're watching Prime or whatever, or you're even walking through the grocery store and the screen changes and says, here's your favorite product. Do you want to renew this product? You're out of dish soap. It's going to change consumer-driven purchasing very, very dramatically.
Yeah. And I 100% agree with Neil. And it kind of goes to my earlier question to put a counterpoint to kind of what Joe just said. I just use Perplexity, which is, we know and love, is one of my favorite tools. Sure. Guess how many, open question, guess how many time, how long it took for the internet to get 1 million unique users?
Oh, it was like 7 years.
No.
20
years. According to Perplexity, which as always has given me a high,
cool.
It's gone to Statistica, so good reference there. Guess how long it took ChatGPT?
20 years, that's incredible. Yeah.
Guess how long it took ChatGPT to get 1 million users?
10 seconds?
5 days, right?
5 days. Okay, see, I'm being radical.
This is the kind of question No.
I
don't think we're in this. I think the adoption curve, to my earlier question to you now, it's just got so much, it's just increased at a point that it's actually quite hard for us to even think about how fast this is compounding. 20 years to 5 days. So yeah, like maybe Rufus isn't good now, but I mean, let's see what they announce next week and accelerate, right? And then
something is going to change. It's going to change at speeds at which that are faster than 6 months. Now that's clear and been evident for the last 5 to 10 years. The challenge we have, Max, is that this system of information that learns and gains has to gain more information and connect more data points to become more aware, right? And with the amount of information you're speaking about and the speed at which it's coming, it's already surpassed that a long time ago, as I was saying earlier. So what we've got now is they're rolling it out into the major marketplaces. We'll start to see it more and more, and it's going to come exponentially fast at us. I mean, 5 days is incredible. I didn't even realize that, but that's speed.
It's actually insane.
But at the same time, since 2020, the average American IQ and age span has gone down. So we have this problem happening where one vertical is going this way and the other vertical is going that way. So what is it going to do? It's replacing roles and people and systems that are simply not going to be available to do it or capable of understanding it. So it has to do things that people don't have the power to do anymore.
I agree. So I'm gonna. I don't know if you have any closing. I was gonna move on, Joe. So did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I don't. But I have a question. But you go first. I have a lot of questions.
I'm gonna ask about
She's chuckling and cackling. There's something behind that question I may not want to hear.
No. I'm gonna ask about how sellers should know what they should profitably find on Amazon. So I'm changing tack. So if there's anything else on this AI stuff, Joe, now's the chance.
Was it going to be a question about optimizing?
Okay. No, wait. Then I have to ask my question.
Okay, here it comes.
Okay, here it comes. Okay, so I just wanted to pick on the last thing that you actually said about basically AI replacing a lot of us. And from an agency point of view, like, how do you see the future of, let's say, Amazon agencies?
You're setting me up at that question. There's not a great answer. I am not an agency. I don't want to become an agency because the speed at which you have to implement technology, unless you are a concerted practitioner and are making sure that every person behind you is a practitioner, you're simply going to be outrun by the systems that are going to be doing this for people. And we even see that in Amazon with the systems and removal of engineers and other things. They're actually downgrading because they are upgrading their hardware. They're doing it in the warehouses already. So I just can look and, based on my experience, and then just look in the market, say, okay, yeah, it's kind of obvious where this thing is headed. It's kind of obvious that if you're not looking to pivot in certain ways or figure out areas to innovate and niche into certain areas, you're going to become irrelevant. You just can't look and taste like everything else because one guy in a virtual assistant can run a 20-man or 50-man agency with AI. You simply are going to find that the saturation of that will take it and make it irrelevant for most people.
Yeah, I mean that that's what my co-founder wanted to do, honestly. So I don't want to, he wanted to make.
I understand.
He wanted to build basically an AGI to be like an Amazon full service agency.
Oh, I have VChats that we've built. We've got one coming. We're training as a virtual coach. We've got 3 others that we use inside of our enterprise already to answer all terms of service questions and information around policies, procedures, product research, anything that needs quick answers. We have constantly been training and are updating based on usage, our own GTPs inside of Voltage used for those kinds of things, replacing people and even technologies. And in some cases, the answers go faster than the coaches can get to them, and people have the direct answers because we're telling them. And soon our policies, procedures, methods, and methodologies and stuff for what we do inside Voltage as part of our our stuff is going to go into a chat that we're going to utilize. So every operator that I train up in a business is going to have access to that. They're going to become a self-independent business. We already sort of do that. When I hear people like, "Oh, I got an 8-figure company, great," and I have like 7 employees. I'm like, "What? I need 7 employees? Like this? What are you actually doing? Let's see what you're doing." And we run those on 2 or 3 people and one conservative leader in a strike team with 3 or 4 VAs. And I'm looking at it going, okay, you're not taking advantage of opportunities we have to run lean and mean and profitable as you pivot through these things that are coming. Again, not an agency running actual businesses and companies, partnering and growing and acquiring these companies. I'm actually looking at companies as part of our acquisition process to give you a bigger picture that are currently doing, say, 10 million, 12, 15 million a year right now. And I want to take them to 30 million. And I know that what's coming in the next 2 years is going to be optimizations and efficiencies in those companies Okay, to just prepare and get ready and stand still as AI circles around us and the systems and everything change around it. You had asked about optimization earlier, and I'm telling people they don't optimize for Caso and Rufus. You get out of its way. You get out of its way.
Max is going to debate this.
Oh wait, I know,
Max. I remember we talked about. Here's what I mean by that. Okay, here's what I mean by that. If you don't do the right thing, AI will run you over. So there isn't optimizing. There is understanding. There isn't execution without knowledge. You must first understand what is important about what is coming, so that I can benefit from it as it arrives in its full capacity, which is not here. And in other words, get out of its way so I don't get victimized by it, because there are a lot of people who are going to get victimized by the coming changes because they simply haven't prepared with enough knowledge and understanding to ride that wave instead of getting crushed by it.
And by the way, excuse my French, but we've seen that Amazon doesn't give a fuck, and they've just kind of
no. They already went in and started changing listings, and we're like, here's your gobbledygook listing from AI, and like, what the heck?
Yeah, well, I'm talking more about, they've just kind of said, oh, these 1P vendors, that basically we forced you to be 1P vendors,
right?
We don't want you to be 1P. Now you're going to be 3P. You're not allowed 1P. Which I mean, it's just. From the individual business owner, it's terrible, because you restructure your whole business because Amazon's forcing you to, and then now you're going back the other way. I mean,
victim or
they didn't care,
empowered, right?
Yeah, and
we are on a platform of system in which we can be victimized unless we look for ways to be empowered.
I've seen it when I was working in Amazon time and time again.
Oh yeah, and then changing the fees and messing with the 3PL structures and changing down the reimbursement policy from 18 months to 60 days. They are optimizing and running efficiencies too. Why?
I wanted to something you said which was very interesting that I wanted to kind of get specific examples on. You were talking about building efficiencies into your seller businesses.
Yes.
And you using AI GPTs, like what specifically are you doing? What's driving good results? Any case studies you can talk about?
Well, I mean, in terms of how that applies in a process, it's not a singular outcome to a case study, but it is part of any case study in my business that we run, or companies that we partner on, or builders that I take from 0 to 8 figures. The end result is there are optimizations and processes by which we utilize data, tools, analytics, copywriting GTPs. We use the policy GTP to make sure all compliance and everything through FDA and FTC, if it has any relevancy, is compliant in the language. Because the thing that I am that many maybe Amazon sellers are not is I was a direct response marketer. That's how I got started in my own business. And when I learned direct response marketing in the days where we uploaded stuff in spreadsheets with no web interfaces and put, GUIs for Facebook and all the stuff that everybody complains about now, which is so freaking easy, we were uploading it in spreadsheets and looking at creatives and actually having to figure out who our customer was and how to speak to them. Imagine that. Pretty surprised, right? So being in that direct response space and having stayed there this entire time, what I see is less about mechanics and tactics and more about the strategy and implementation of those. So for us, chat GTPs that we put in the GTPs we built in our process, methodology, keyword research, competition, the writing of the listing and reanalyzing the listing down to what images are created either by AI or human, or analyzed by AI to determine what their outcome is. I'm preparing everything for the coming changes. And when that occurs now, it's actually allowing some of my people to have amazing results. Like, Daniel Espy, right? He used that process and launched at the worst possible time during 2020. Took him 8 months to get to market just because of the whole thing, the thing. And so, fast forward this year, he's on pace to hit 16 million in sales. So when I say case studies, I'm thinking big picture. I'm thinking opportunity cost. I'm not thinking, 3 million in revenue. That's a great start. How do we get to 10 and 20 and 30 million? So when the scope of what I'm saying is probably larger than most Amazon sellers, because I'm also thinking omni-channel. Amazon for me is just a spoken hub. It's a logistics and freight company. And that's what I treat it like. It's also a direct response company that's creating demand for customers. And I am being a direct response marketer and answering the problem so my products get sold faster at higher profit, right? So when I look at this market, I look at it very differently from growth and expansion. And for that, my people benefit, of course, in the process of actually executing it. David LeBlanc did this. He had 30,000 a month when he was running with us 18 months ago. He came to us and said, I'm stuck. I'm 6 months in. I'm going to give up. I can't make any money. This is ridiculous. And in 8 months later, he broke, actually it was 6 months later, he broke 100K a month. Fast forward another 12 months. It's now 18 months in. I just did his case study on my High Voltage Business Builders podcast. You're welcome to go check that out. He's now at $500,000 a month on FBA and $100,000 a month on Shopify, right? He's a $6 million brand. So now he is looking at, well, how do I get to 12? It's just time and market now. How do I get to $1 million a month? Is right in the process, right? He actually has a ridiculous 6% ACost and a 25% tacos on that. So he has a huge amount of bandwidth to PPC growth that he hasn't even done yet. So he will easily get to $1 million a month. Systems, optimizations, and efficiencies have allowed him and Daniel to do that with no employees, right? They have people that they are putting in direct roles as part of their SOPs for social and management and PPC, and then even calendaring and things they're taking off from their personal life. But they have no employees. Systems, automations, and GG.
There's 6 million in revenue with two employees.
No employees. He's the one employee, and he has
so one person is 6 million in revenue.
Yeah, that's not undoable. That's not hard. We can do.
No, I'm just saying. So there's this famous bet that Sam
profitability
has with some other people. Mm-hmm. I agree. But this kind of when will we get our first $1 billion one person company? Because you have
a long time ago. Yeah.
So we're already seeing. So they're using basically AI and VAs across everything.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, part of that efficiencies came out of business. We developed. I hit my first 6 figures in 2014 in Amazon for 7 figures. Once you hit that mark, there's enough data and relevance, and you've rich enough processes to understand how to repeat, build, and scale, and do that at larger levels. Now running multiple 8 figures. So at this point, when I got to 2016, I had a friend of mine, Matt Harward, who does a mobile division, mobile marketing guy, and he was leading that pack with software and stuff, and he was doing somewhere around $600,000-700,000 a month in his business. But he was bored, and he's like, I want to test something else out. I went and played on Amazon. How can we do this? I've got a lot of money. I want to go big. Don't tell me the small stuff. I really want to get to the big stuff. How fast can you get me to $500,000 a month? And I jokingly brag, we do that in 6 months. We actually hit it in 4. He turned into one of the larger case studies we've ever had. He hit $5 million a month by month 8. Okay. So at that point, I'd already understood by 2015, 2016, the economies of scale that is inside of Amazon that most people are limiting in their belief. They have scarcity and mindset. They do not understand. When I say 3, 6, and 5 million is just the beginning for niches and markets, I know that because it can be done in a month. So the end result is I think people don't think big enough. And without their ability to think big enough, what is coming is so big that it's going to be in some ways incapacitating for some of them. They're simply going to not know how to adjust and deal with it. And the businesses they got now that are doing great are going to suffer because of that, because they won't know how to move. And they're on all these different webinars about growth hacks and AI business summits. I'm about to go to one, so I'm guilty of charging this vehicle forward. But the end result is if they are not focused on what's working in their business and then applying AI to only the systems, processes, or sections of their business that optimize that individual thing, they're going to become a victim of all of it, trying to do all of it. They're not going to be able to succumb. So we have put it into small pieces of an existing workflow that is already successful to simply take 3 and 4 day tasks down to 3 to 4 hours. We've optimized efficiencies. We've removed roles from that process. And this is from a guy who in 2015 and 16, before I saw what Matt did, was running a 20,000 square foot warehouse with 12 employees. And when I realized what was happening, I'm like, done, shut it down. We're out the door, fire the employees. Let's change this all. It set a new trajectory of path and expectation for what I know is possible.
And so this is really interesting though, the picture you're painting of, I guess, the Amazon seller of the future is either someone who is quite big and quite experienced, or someone who is very savvy in terms of data processes and AI. Is there still space for the new sellers?
My opinion, the space of new startups who don't want to tackle the opportunity cost of what I call the tier 2, tier 3 seller, customer, in Amazon or any marketplace, because we also go TikTok and Shopify and other places. To be very clear, we're omni-channel. Is that they're simply going to get left behind by those who can, because the money is flowing like a river and it moves, right? It moves. It may feel scarce to some people. It may have gone away from some people, but it simply is just a river, and they are moving here and it is moving here. It's farther from them. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means it's moved. And in my opinion, it moved 3 and 5 years ago. And most people didn't even pay attention to the fact that it had moved. And so now they're feeling the ramifications of that. That is only going to exponentially change. So that if they cannot or are not willing, in my world, to put in 50 to 100K in the business in year one, they're going to lose. There are enough of us now who have enough strength and time in market that you simply won't enter markets that we're going to dominate unless you're going to be able to play at the brand to brand level. And at this world, in this place, it is going to be a capital intensive measure. I do not believe that people anymore can just put $5,000 into an Amazon business and see it turn into 8 figures. That was 10, 12 years ago. That is no longer the way it works. They're still being taught and told that, and they may not want to hear what I have to say because they're not willing to turn the rock over, and that's fine. Doesn't make it any less true. In my world, we're going to deploy, a 500,000 to a million so that we can get to the position, all right, where we will have $1 million a month every 90 days, which means in inventory and turnover, if I'm in a $10 million business and 90 days into it, I've got a $4.5 million PO, of which I've got to put, if I've negotiated well, I got to put 15% of that down to 20%. So I'm looking at, 750 to $1 million. It has to go down every 90 days. I have to have the cash to do that. If I don't, I simply won't make the business run anymore. And those who think they don't understand that are going to find it out when they can't grow in the marketplace. Amazon's own algorithm. Okay, wants those who have more inventory and capitalization to grow faster because the demand is faster. It's 10 times faster than it was 3 years ago, right? Those who cannot speed up, with that capacity are going to watch their 1,000 units and their ACoS go to 80% as they get down to 300 units and don't understand why it's getting worse because Amazon is actually penalizing them when their inventory drops too low in the market in which they're selling. If they went from 1,000 to 2,000 units, their ACoS would drop to 30% or less, and the volume of their sales would go up. So where does that base that metric off of? Profitability. It's the first thing I look at. It's the only thing I look at a brand or product that comes to market. And so the answer is yes, it is a good time and you should do it if you can get in the game and capitalize it correctly. If you cannot get in the game and capitalize it correctly, you're simply going to be capped. People, systems, and Amazon and other marketplaces now are going to be against you because TikTok Shop is doing live streams at $5 million in 3 hours. The speed at which this is, like you talked about that. There was a live stream here, less than 6 months ago where the guy did like $1 million in 4 hours and broke the record. And then somebody else did it 800,000 and another person did 3 million. And this other guy did 5 million. And it's like the race to hit 10 million is the next stop.
So, I mean, what you said there about, rewarding velocity and punishing not, obviously we all knew out of stock is one of the factors in A9, but I never quite thought about it like that. Like they're going to reward people they see the scale.
How much have you capitalized inventory? If you've capitalized inventory to a certain level in the niche and node in which you're competing with your 5 to 10 other people in your node for, Adirondack chairs, making that one up. And other people have 10,000 or 20,000 units of inventory to meet current customer demand that's flowing at 15 million searches a year through that node for people looking for Adirondack chairs. And you have 1,000 units and your profitability is lower than theirs, why would Amazon push you out?
Yeah.
It's not even a hypothetical question. The answer is they would, and they will. So how do you beat them? You overcapitalize your stock and inventory levels and prove that your brand, your rating, and your profitability and your stock will beat the next people above you.
But hold on. The question
Not theory.
I haven't got my question out yet, Joe.
Wait. I just want to keep writing that one. The question is then from an Amazon's sort of strategy, like how this would benefit them in the long term, because if you get saturated in like 10 big players that can afford to play with the cash and then all the other ones die, then you're not giving the best possible customer experience because you don't have enough choice. So
there's plenty of choices. That's just it. They will show you the choices because those other sellers are in there trying to reach the top of the market. Amazon knows that, but they also want profitability. And you think they don't know your cost of goods? You don't think they have any understanding of most of the manufacturing processes or data? You think they're randomly ranking people based on their current social engine score? That is not how this works.
So you think they're including profitability because they want to? I
don't think they're including profitability. I know.
They're including profitability.
I know they do. Why? Number one, it is good business. And number two, I've seen it in the field with products that I have launched into multiple brands in which I have taken one brand that was dominating a particular keyword and I duplicated that brand in its entirety except for the product. And I target a slightly distant customer segment and I raised the price so the profitability was higher per unit than the same product and the same keyword next to the other brand. Guess what happened?
The higher price.
One with more profitability sold more. So then I went and tested it again. Then I had my clients test it in real world. And what we discovered was we don't sell products less than $50 to $200 in price point anymore. Because my profitability will be I will sell $5 to $7 more, or even $12 more per unit in some cases, in those where the highest competitor is selling $10 less than us, and we are still dominating that node.
So I want to get on to profitability. I just want to rewind to one thing beforehand, which was you said you basically need. I slightly forget the numbers, but it was
50 to 100K year one.
50 to 100K year one to launch an Amazon brand.
If you really want to compete to get to 8 figures, like most people who are getting in this business want to do, they want the sky as the limit opportunity, right?
What's the breakdown in, like, why are you spending that cost? Because you're not spending it, you know, you're saying you're running super lean operations with AIs basically. So where is that?
Marketing.
All on PPC.
It goes back to acquiring the customer when others are not willing to acquire in that first customer, because we run a portfolio of products. You may be thinking as a 1 or 2 products, but our minimum is our 5x5 product launch process that is supposed to lead to 5, 10, 20 SKUs that are making up 80% of your revenue and profitability. For that reason, I'm playing a slightly different game than I hear most Amazon sellers play. I'm going into the market with more information. I'm getting an AI engine, more data, and I'm letting it define where it takes me. So many people get in this and they're like, well, I'm going to go here. This is it. And if I don't go here and it's not successful, the whole thing fails. Well, I have learned because of business systems and AI that it is fluid. And if I will allow that to flow and find out where that river is through the data and products and profitability, it will simply open up into a great span of products where then inventory capitalization and PPC behind organic is where I will win. Now, the David LeBlanc case study, go listen. He's doing $500,000 a month on Amazon with 90% of that is organic traffic. Why do you think that is? There's an entire system and process we go through, having built these systems and built part of it in my IBM days and watching what it does and learning how the system works. Their organic traffic is not gone. It is simply gone from you if you put PPC on your listings too soon. If you force the algorithm to get you to buy traffic to rank, then it will keep you buying traffic for ranking. And once you turn that off, you will derank. Unless I push organic first through the system to a certain point in which my data set is greater than the data set of the other products in that node, I don't put PPC on until that occurs. If that takes 60 to 90 days, that's how long it takes.
So do you achieve that through like external traffic? Like what is
all on Amazon? It has to be within that ecosystem. Everybody with off Amazon traffic ideas, I think that they're trying to manipulate the engine in order to reward it within a platform that is an ecosystem that only looks at outside influence if inside the system the customers are being rewarded by the journey for that product and the output and the reviews of that product that close the entire data cycle that Amazon sees. If your data cycle is not closing correctly and you bring outside influence, it will only be for a time. It'll go like this. And instead of going like this and then reaching some point where you hockey stick, which you will in time, hockey stick forward, because your data eventually got better, your inventory levels were able to be capitalized above the next few people in line. Maybe they fell out of stock and you went ahead of them. Something occurred in the market and you got a little jolt. It will happen. And all of a sudden you're now capitalizing at really large amounts in order to keep up with the demand. So the system is literally holding people back who get bad data sets in the first 7, 21, and 30 days. When they don't launch in that first window correctly, they have penalized themselves in the system. They will be forced to pay for ranking.
So you believe in a reverse honeymoon period where it's not...
I invented the honeymoon period, dude. That was such a stupid saying. The result of the honeymoon period was a product launch process by which I could take a product out to 21 and 7 and 21 days and become a bestseller in any node. And it was a matter of optimizing the engine for a specific relevancy from keyword top down through search all the way down to the product itself. So it was a straight line path through the AI. Why? Because I spent 18 months reverse engineering the system when I discovered that it was doing something that I had done at the IBM days. This is my own personal story. Take it for what it's worth. The end result was I realized that it needed to see certain things weighted over a certain time, just like we were teaching the systems to learn back in the day. And so I went forward and said, how do you get this system to love you more than others? Well, now we can rank products to 10, 20 sales a day on a $180 product with no reviews. Once you get in line with the organic search, it will reward you. If you're fighting it or trying to manipulate it with off Amazon traffic, and you can tell I get kind of passionate about this when I say it, then you are simply not rewarding the system. It will see your spike in growth, but it will not allow you to keep it because you are simply not the best data set in its ecosystem. Become the best data set in Amazon's own system, and then go off script. Go over and get audience creation demand and bring it back to Amazon, and we'll only love you more.
I have to say, Max, we have to invite Neil again because we are kind of actually at the end of our podcast.
Oh, we are at the end? I'm sorry.
I am just starting. I have so many questions. This is such a fantastic conversation, Neil. Thank you so much. It's like, wow.
Fun. Thank you for having me. I enjoy this, and I really want people to understand this because they're limiting their opportunities they don't even understand. If you put your PPC on, here's a pro tip for anybody listening who's a current seller. If you're launching a new product on a new ASIN, you get what's called an IDQ score, right? This is in the white papers. This is in the details. We study this stuff for years until Amazon took it all off their website. Imagine why they did that, right? So when they determined that each particular node has somewhere around, it used to be like 7 to 10 engineers per a node working on a specific relevancy for a node. I think that's back down now because AI is doing a whole lot more of it. And in each of these nodes where we file our products down to a specific relevant niche inside of Amazon, that what we call that leaf on the end of the tree, you are looking at the most hyper-relevant product type for an in-demand customer coming through 30 seconds or less, right? So long story short, if you touch that system in the first 7 days in any way that does not allow the system to optimize the data set that you gave it, you are manipulating the data, and that IDQ score will come down. You can't bring it back up. You understand? It goes to a certain point where it won't come back up. And it's looking at all the other IDQ scores for historical time and market data, last 12 months, last quarter, last 3 years, that the product ASIN in that node who you're competing against already came in and was setting there and has all this historical data. And it's looking at you and saying, hey, we want to give you a fair shot because you might be the next viral thing. But when you see that and you go up and then it doesn't continue to go up and it goes down, and you're like, what the heck happened? It is that you just weren't relevant in the data set. You went up, you came back down. If you notice these kinds of trend, folks, you have to change that. When you're launching that new ASIN in the first 7 days, do not put PPC on the listing. No matter what anybody tells you, trust me, do not touch the listing in the first 7 days. If impressions and clicks come, but no sales, optimize, okay? If impressions and no clicks come, then optimize. If impressions, clicks, and sales comes, you are dialed in. Let it ride for up to another 7 days. Only put an auto campaign on if you feel like it. After 7 days, if you see sales, only an auto campaign, go into data gathering mode. That's it. Data gathering, not sales, not vertical. You do this for 30, 60, and 90 days, then 8 figures is a real possibility, all disclaimers aside, in 4 years. If you do the damage to the system in your seller account before that, it'll be much, much more difficult for you to climb out of that problem. You're even better in some cases killing the ASIN. And if you do a really bad job, shut the whole seller account down and start over.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is really interesting because it's exactly the opposite of what everyone's talking about. So, yeah.
I'm just look, guys. I'm just a weirdo in the world.
Well, you know what we could do?
Playing with my guns and being an idiot. So what do I know?
No.
We could try and host a debate, Joe, where we get Neil and then we get someone of like the Amazon Orthodoxy.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We are an operations team, man.
That could be quite enjoyable.
I have nothing to sell you. There's nothing here to learn. I'm an operations team that runs my own companies and operations. So, it just takes for the value of what it is. Hopefully somebody gains something from today. I've certainly gained something just hanging out with you two. You're fun and the questions are amazing. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's great to see you. And listeners, stay tuned because follow us, subscribe, whatever you're doing, because we will have Neil back on a debate format with someone of the more.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go for that.
Right, Neil. So where can our listeners get in touch with you if they wanted to?
All right. Well, guys, appreciate that very much. They can go to voltagedm.com if they want to. That's Voltage Digital Marketing. As a growth incubator, we are both the beginning and the end. So we are not an aggregator. We're an incubator, and we've been incubating for a while, which means we build, launch, grow, sell, and scale, and as well as exit these companies. And we're also looking for companies in the 1.5 to 3 million plus in EBITDA. So if anybody knows any EBITDA businesses they want to sell, I'm interested. They must be omni-channel to get the most value out of that. That's my plug. That's my name. And it is TWA, by the way, not some weird acronym people might think of. And of course, I'm not a small Asian guy now that you've seen me on video.
I
You thought that, didn't you? Every time I make that joke, I'm like, somebody wondered what I look like, and it's like, no, I'm not as small as you.
Well, we'll link all of that below.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, been an absolute pleasure, Neil, and hope to have you back on at some point.
Thanks, guys.
Fight it
Appreciate
out.
Thank you.